Hello and welcome to the report card for the Supernova. So for everybody watching this live, I'll take some comments from the chat. I'll talk about that a little bit while the video is playing. But for everybody watching this later as a video, I will try to structure it more as a video so that you don't get mired down in a half an hour or 45 minutes worth of nonsense. I'll try to save most of the questions till the end, but I'll kind of break things up while we're watching the video. So I do have a couple notes down. This was originally intended to be a video, like a prepared thing. However, this has been more fun, so I thought I'd do this again and see how it works, see how you like it. Hi, puppies. If you haven't seen one of these before, what I try to do is go back and revisit a ball a couple months after release to see if we got it right, how much we use it, what we use it on, and if we've learned anything new or have any extra or different observations or opinions about it. Also, since it's a report card, I'm actually going to give out grades for a change. I haven't done that before. And we'll see whether or not I am drinking the Kool-Aid. It's actually coffee in a Kool-Aid cup, but whatever. Also, the ticker down at the bottom there, code ROSEDOLL10 for 10% off checkout at CoolWick.com, and then the link to Bowler's Mart in the description for this or any of your other bowling needs. I do earn a 5% commission on all sales made through the link, so supporting them supports me. I am required to tell you that. I have my new Patch Pirate jersey on, by the way, so I've got to show this sucker off. Patch Pirate. This is amazing. You can find this as actually, if you just go onto CoolWick and type my name in, this is a replica jersey that you can get. So, all right. So for the details here, the Supernova is pretty easy on paper. It's got the asymmetric ignition core from the Nova in it, and it's also got, it's got NEX solid on it, which is from the axiom of the proton physics. R2X that's on the original Nova is a lot weaker. So think Nova and then think an Arrow stronger with twice the back end, because the Nova was pretty good at playing straight and controlling angles and being a medium strength ball. Now, Angel still uses her Supernova occasionally. She has more of like a rotation, so stuff just kind of, and she also has a her and James on our Friday Night Mix League. They do kind of a pick the bag thing for the Discord members. So they'll have our Discord members pick their bags for the night. And so the Super is in the rotation. She has a probably 20 ball rotation. It is a little bit too strong for regular use. If she's picking it herself to take somewhere, it normally has to be a little bit more oil than League. It doesn't last too long in League. However, it rolls so much like her original Nova that the shape itself really works for her and allows her to use it more often than she uses other big balls like that. So I'm going to go on ahead and add the video in here. And I believe that she was on the house shot for this. All files, thank you. Oh, wrong place. Not where I want to be. It's incredibly well organized and planned here. All right. Right out the gate. Boo, Shop Talk. Yeah, the people have voted. The people have voted. So the surface she has on it in the video is 2000 grit. It's just how it came out of the box. And the surface she got on it now, she just let it lane shine. So you can see that if you do have a Nova, or you've seen a lot of Novas, maybe even have a Super, it does have this kind of tumbly roll to it. And the thing that some of these bowling terms get a little, trip people up a little bit, and tumbly is if you say rolly or arky or whatever else, those are just, a lot of bowling terms are just normal words that we use to describe bowling things. Tumbly is kind of a bowling specific thing. Tumbly, just imagine kind of like a rock rolling downhill. If you see something that's rolly, it doesn't really, something that's rolly just rolls. it just doesn't look like it's doing much of anything. It doesn't look like it's revving. It doesn't look like it's picking up speed. Something that's revving, you can see it just kind of rotating at the, with the amount of revolutions on it that the bowler puts on it. And then once it starts picking up, then it really starts accelerating. That's revving up, and you can see the super kind of revving up towards the end of the lane. But when something tumbles, it doesn't really roll. It just kind of looks like a rock that's rolling down a hill. It's not really revving up. It's not really rolling like a snowball per se. It just kind of thump, thump. It just kind of looks like it thump, 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 thump. So a tumble generally makes it really stable and controllable, and that's what the original Nova does. The Nova just tumbles all the way down the lane. It just kind of tumbles indefinitely. So it's very controllable. This one does obviously hook more than the Nova. It also is sharper than the Nova, as she almost 710s. Hers is a little smoother than James's is. We'll see that in a minute. Haven't been seeing the Supernova much. Any idea why? Maybe the reality hype. That's kind of the thing, is that we do have some pretty good stuff out there right now. The proton physics just went discontinued. The gem came out. The reality is still going strong, and the Supernova just really isn't that pretty. So, I mean, that's one of those things where people say, I don't really care what a ball looks like. The general public cares what a ball looks like. And so the pretty ones tend to stick around more than I can tell you. Like when the Insight came out, I knew that ball was going to be gone in under a year just because of the way it looked. So the TNT is kind of between a tumble and an arc. So let me see if I've got any Nova video in here to kind of compare to. I should. Nova. Absolute. Sure. All right. So this got some surface on it, and so they're both at 2000 grit. So you can see that very, very familiar rolls. The Nova is just slower. It's not quite as, it's definitely not as strong. And this is an interesting one because when it's lane shined, it hooks significantly less than when it's got surface on it. And that's an interesting thing that Stu Williams pointed out to me about weaker covers that I hadn't really thought of explaining that way. He's like, yeah, the weaker covers, you put surface on them and they're crazy strong, but the cover strength really shows up when they shine, because if you shine something like an Idle Cosmos, it just goes a little bit longer, it's a little sharper, but it's still really strong. However, when the Nova shines up, it gets significantly weaker. And so Nova at 2000 grit right here versus Nova shiny is quite a big difference. However, again, yeah, the Nova definitely looks like it floats a little bit more. And so the Nova, you can tell the reaction similarity. It's just the Nova is weaker and slower, in which you don't normally think. It's like that kind of goes against the whole bowling, solids are earlier and smoother than hybrids or pearls, but this is a hybrid and it's obviously quite a bit slower than the Nova. That NEX solid cover, I've said it a million times. But NEX solids really, it shapes a bunch for how strong it is. So seen that. I'm going to go back to the Super. I've got a few more thoughts before we move on to James, and we've actually got James on 3 different patterns here. We've got him on Chromium, we got him on House, and then we've got him on the 2021 Nationals doubles and singles pattern. So compared to, and these are my notes here, obviously, compared to other similar strength balls like the Gem and Reality, the Super shapes more like the Gem, but it gets easier length and is sharper like the Reality. I think it has more overlap with the Reality than with the Gem, because the Gem digs in more. It's a whole lot earlier. It's heavier rolling. You can see that the Super doesn't really do anything until it hits friction. That's that tumble where it's not really revving, it's not slowing down, it's not doing anything. It's just, you watch it just tumble, 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 tumble. Oh, we're going to do something. So compared to older balls like the proton physics, the UFO, and volatility, it's the most like the proton physics because the reality is still even a little cleaner than the proton and a little sharper. The gem is more like a stronger UFO, and I'm not really sure that we've seen any craziness like the volatility since that was out. The supernova really does have a crux line type of shape. However, it's longer and sharper than both the crux prime or the alpha crux. I don't really think it replaces anything that we've had before. Maybe the Sherlock, but I think the reality is a whole lot closer to the Sherlock. So it does fit really well within the lines. I don't really think you could throw all those other balls. The reality is definitely longer and sharper at the very least. I think it's even a little bit weaker. If you've got them all at 2000, the reality is a little bit more dynamic, but I think that the super has a little bit more teeth. And then the gem is even more so. It's earlier, smoother, a whole lot chunkier reaction. And then the super, it doesn't overlap the DNA either, since we've got the DNA in the mix now. The DNA is a completely different type of animal. So I might even show that a little bit later here, but I do have to be conscious of time because I don't want a report card to last for 45 minutes. So how would the super compare to the exotic gem? Just curious. Actually, it's because the exotic is longer and sharper than the gem, it's a little closer to the exotic, is closer to the super than the original gem is. The exotic just has that that chuggy, heavy roll that wants to slow down faster than the super, and so it's still it is a little bit closer. It's just not. It's still different. This cover just makes things really weird. So all right, we're gonna go on ahead and switch over to James. We're gonna start on house shot. And James drilled his pin down, and we started at 2000 grit. Can you rank all the balls mentioned from strongest? Yeah, give me a second. I'll get into this a little bit. It didn't really end up fitting for him, at least with the layout. He went pin down because he thought the pin up one would make it too early. His original Nova is pin up, and it's already rolly and slow, and he didn't want to exaggerate that with the super having so much stronger of a cover. He didn't want it to be early and slow. And it's interesting with the pin down thing because pin down on asymmetrics really just makes them longer. It doesn't tame down the back. Excuse me. It doesn't tame down the back end near as much as it does on symmetric balls. Because when you already have a bunch of int diff and then you have a lot of differential, the thing's going to flare like crazy anyway. So going pin down really just raises the RG, helps it down the lane a little bit, but it's still going to boom. So it's a little bit slower, but I think it's kind of offset sometimes by raising the RG and keeping the ball from being so early. And so I think, yeah, this one does have a comparison to the Nova in it too, and you can see it's longer. This is a fantastic comparison because it actually appears on screen the way that it's supposed to. You know, sometimes depending on the pattern, depending on the lane surface, you'll get these weaker balls out hooking stronger balls type of thing. But the Supernova is so dynamic and it's so sharp that it does get dig and it does cover boards. I'm a really big fan of the NAX cover. So yeah, James is actually in the chat here. He said the super was when I figured out the pin down asym isn't really my thing. Unfortunate timing. I think I'd use it a ton if it was up. Yeah, and I think so. It'd be a stronger, sharper Nova. Really, we just didn't expect it to be this sharp, especially again pinned down. It continues to be surprising how clean and sharp NEX is for how much traction it also gets. With his speed, it was too long and sharp, and the amount of surface he needed on the ball to even it out just made it too strong and early overall. There didn't seem to be a happy medium, as we'll see on all three of these patterns, because when he adds surface, it gets early, But then, okay, so what service? This was at box. So this was 2000 grit out of the box. And we tried all kinds of different stuff. So just got on, sorry if you already answered this, but Supernova compared to the Proton is a little diggier and it's a little sharper. The Nova, the Super rolls differently. The Super tumbles a whole lot more. The Proton revs up faster and it's also a little bit more forward. I think the Proton ultimately hooks a little bit more though. So yeah. All right. So we're at the end of that video. I'll go on ahead and play the chromium before we get into the tough stuff. So now we're on chromium. I might have to go back to a different camera angle. This looks a little far away. However, so we got some stuff on chromium before he got. I think this was when we were filming for the DNA because we knew that everybody was going to want to see this comparison, and so we got some extra footage for it on chromium. And still, it's one of these things where it's, again, you see it's a little too long and it's a little too sharp. But if he adds the amount of surface that he needs to get it to dig and kind of blend it out, then it's just too early. So he's kind of a in the middle, in between thing, and we really think it's the layout because he has used the DNA quite a bit more than he expected to, given how much it traps him right of third arrow, and that's not really his thing. He likes to open the lane up more, but the DNA has given him such a ridiculous look from right of third arrow that he's comfortable with it. He can't really chase it in, but if he had a pin-up Supernova, it's the same. It's a very similar type of roll. It's just one that he can chase it deeper with. So even as he slows his speed down, it's still just, you can tell it's just a little over under. Yeah, axing the Proton was a mistake. It was useful on anything for so many. Yeah, it comes down to sales numbers. That's the infamous story with the idol, with the original idol that talked to Schlemmer about it. And what happened is they only sold 20 of them for the last 2 months that the ball was out, and so they thought, okay, well, everybody's over the idol now, whatever else, so they discontinued it. They shipped 20 of them worldwide in the last 2 months that it was in the catalog. And so they thought, okay, well, it's done. But they discontinued it, and then everybody freaked out. They lost their minds, and they had so many orders that they actually made a special run of them to satisfy the orders before they discontinued it. They had to make 1,500 more of them. So the moral of the story is if you like something, you want to stay in production, buy it. Same thing happened to the Alert. No, that was one of the ones that was caught up in Softgate, the USB-C bands. All right, I'm going to go ahead and play it on the Nationals pattern now, and it was even worse on the Nationals pattern because, again, it's already too long and quick. And see, he really chalked this one up because we're again a lot heavier volume on the Nationals pattern, and so this has got to be 1,000 grit or at very least back to 2,000. But it's just, you see it, even with all that surface on it, it still wants to be long. How would the Supernova compare to a Gravity Evolve? Probably not in the same vein. I do apologize. Learning ball shapes and comparisons is weird. Yeah, and it's tricky because especially all the cover stock names and figuring out what's actually strong, what's actually weak, what strong and weak actually mean. And then here's another great comparison to show the Supernova versus the Nova and just how much weaker the Nova really is. I mean, he can get it to get there if he wants to, or if he really works on it. And actually, I think the Nova worked better on this sport pattern because it is a little bit slower. He has to throw the Super so fast to get it down the lane to keep it from hooking early. The Nova, he can actually slow down a roll a little bit. If he slows down and rolls the Super, it's over under. He's got to throw it hard to get it down the lane. He's also got to give it room to the right to get down the lane, but it's a very, very fine line between hard enough to get down the lane and so hard that it doesn't react, and far enough right to get it down the lane, but not far enough right to where it doesn't kind of fall off. So this is like, see, he gets it inside a little bit, it takes off. A little bit more room. That was a better shot, but he's got to be so accurate. If he doesn't do exactly that, it just doesn't really have a prayer. And see, he gives it just a little bit more room to the right, and it mixed them up, but it didn't quite get there. See, it reacts good and it's close, but it's just not right. It's just not. See, he just does not have any room with it. Is the Supernova type of ball that Norm Duke would like? Oh yeah, I'm sure, because he really liked the Nova, and so the Super is something he can just walk down the side if he needs a little bit more in the posterior end, a little more in the donkey. Then yeah, he could use the Supernova. However, there was shockingly no last-minute special run triggering Order Fest for the Zen Masters. That's another one I predicted it would be gone pretty quick. Mostly because it sucked, but also because it was ugly. Hey, Max. So we see all kinds of conditions and lane surface friction levels here, to be fair. So having different balls for different centers, even if they're using the same pattern, is common. So, however, just as a rule, so what I mean by that is that just because it's not working here on these patterns doesn't mean that it wouldn't look good in some other center, because it doesn't really matter. There's some stuff that we would use at other centers in town that we would never use here, and it doesn't really matter what the condition is. They're just certain types of balls for certain lane surfaces here. You just have to take certain kinds of balls, and you kind of almost ignore the lane condition, because it's just like, well, we had some old AMF HPLs in one of the centers that just got taken out, and you just took stuff that didn't hook there. It didn't really matter what the pattern was. They had to dump oil on it. You know, dump a bucket of oil on it just to get the ball down the lane. So I'll go ahead and restart this just as we're on the way out here. For Angel, now that we're into report card territory, I'm giving it a B+, because it gives her the shape of the Nova with more strength and shape. The only thing that keeps it out of A territory is the overall strength. That just, even when she can use it, she can't use it for too long. For James, it's a C+. With this layout, it's not bad. It's just not usable very often. It's just not a great fit here. It either needs to be a bit weaker or a bit smoother. The total package of this one just doesn't fit as well for him as the original Nova does. So I'll take a few more questions, and then I'll get ready to switch over to the Night Road. Picked up a Zen Master recently. I find it really, really good, but then again, I always seem to match up with the niche unpopular releases. Yeah. How would you say the exotic gem compares to the Supernova? I did touch on this a few minutes ago. However, you probably were not here, or you likely heard. The exotic gem isn't too far off. It is chuggier. It's earlier rolling. The Nova, or the Super, again, it kind of tumbles. It doesn't really get into a super heavy early roll. I'm going to throw Angel back in here because it's a whole lot easier to see. Hi, you're a doofus. So you can see the roll with Angel a whole lot easier, because James, everything just looks like it's spinning and revving up like crazy. See that it just doesn't really rev. It's pretty clean. It doesn't rev up. It doesn't roll heavy. It doesn't slow down. The exotic really it chugs and it slows down, and so yeah. And James did note here in the chat, if he had a pinup Super, he'd probably give it a solid B. So it's one that would not see a crap ton of use, but especially with some of the other stuff he's been throwing, and he might have some overlap with some stuff, like he's got a one remix that it would probably see a little bit of overlap with. The exotic gem, that'd be hilarious. That'd be like, then act like his brutal collision. So before we wrap this up, remember the description for the link to Bowler's Mart to get one ordered or for any of your other bowling needs. Remember to use my code ROSEDOLL10 as the ticker says for 10% off at checkout at CoolWick.com. Patch Pirate jersey, y'all. Type in my name in the search bar and you can find it and get your own replica. I've got a couple other replica jerseys on there too. So
More coming soon.
yes, and also be sure to check out my memberships. I do have YouTube memberships, and although I haven't uploaded anything in a while, we haven't had any new stuff announced yet. So it's been a little bare there. I haven't had a whole lot to share to the members, but I appreciate everybody that supports me, and I will have stuff as soon as something new is announced. I will have some stuff that goes up. And depending on your level of membership, it also gets you into our Discord server where you can tag me and or James, any kind of coaches. We got 125 odd people in there, so great community there if that's something you're interested in. Thanks, of course, to my members. Thank you for watching. May the strikes be with you. I'll hang on for another couple minutes as we're about ready to start the Night Road. The Night Road report card. That one's pretty interesting. Whoops. Man. You turn the lights off. It's the darkest I've ever looked. So, all right. Do you think that certain balls just look amazing? Yeah, that doesn't ever work.
Okay. I was wondering.
Yeah, it just gets all fuzzy. I've got a nice PBR bar sign in the back there. You think certain balls just look amazing for some and not for everyone? Yeah. I mean, I'm that way with the Eternity right now. It's one of the worst balls I've ever thrown, and it looks redonkulous for literally everybody else. It's really, really, I mean, it's really bad for me, but it's really good for everybody else. And so this is a hilarious instance of, I'm not basing anything on my experience at all, because everybody else, Angel's shot, what, 770, 750, whatever else. She shot a bunch of big numbers with hers, and everybody else I see throwing them, they're really good for them too. So yeah, how would the Supernova, oh yeah, I got kind of halfway through that question, sorry. How would the Supernova compare to the Gravity Evolve? The covers are different, and the Evolve was not good. The Supernova is kind of good. But it does kind of, the general roll is not really that far off. It's just if the Gravity Evolve was a little bit more, if the Evolve was a little bit more consistent, it was the worst of the spec. Thank you, sir. I think it was the worst of the spec balls. So I think that this would be better, actually. So, all right. I'm gonna go ahead and shut this one off and hop on to the next one, because I'm sure that y'all are ready to talk some Night Roads. So thanks for joining me on this one. Thanks for everybody in the chat. Thanks for everybody that's watching this later. If you have any questions, just drop them in the comments section. I'll get back to you. So